Hey folks, it's Philip with the Everyday Fighter podcast. The other day I was working with a student one-on-one, holding mitts for her. So just calling out the different strikes, jab or cross or whatever combo that it was. And through the whole thing, even like right from the beginning, before we even started, she's saying that I'm uncoordinated. I'm uncoordinated. And like every time she'd make a mistake, she'd say, okay, I'm just not very coordinated. And that was kind of a fairly constant talk track, not only in that particular session, but I mean, that's something that she was used to saying, and I've heard from her on many other occasions in the past. So it was definitely a pattern. And one of the things that it reminded me of is something I learned years ago. And the concept is this: if you're working with somebody, whether it's a student and you're an instructor, or you're a salesperson, this is a prospect or a client, or if it's your parent or a child, there's an interpersonal interaction there. The concept is that you each have your goals in the interaction, and whichever one of you is most flexible wins. So that means that the person that is most flexible in trying to achieve that particular goal wins. And it's not necessarily such that it's competitive or confrontational. It's just that it's the dynamic of that situation, right? And in this particular case, she was saying that she's uncoordinated, and that was her talk track. And I think a lot of that was more unconscious than conscious, right? It's kind of a pattern that she's run with, and with a lot of behavioral type patterns. I mean, you kind of get numb to it after a bit. It just comes out, and you're not even really thinking about it, right? So she was committed to that in terms of, okay, whatever she was doing, that she was going to be uncoordinated. And I know it's simplifying it, but just kind of bear with me on this. So that was her goal. My goal was that, well, I want to teach her that she's not uncoordinated, that she has the capability to learn these skills and to do these drills that we're going through. So when we learned about this concept of the one that's the most flexible wins, there were a few steps to that. The first one is for me to understand what my desired outcome is. Right? What is my goal for this interaction that I have with her? I mean, in this particular case, my goal was, okay, show her the skill so that she can see that she is coordinated and that she's doing it, right? Regardless of what she says to herself, or she's saying out loud, or this talk track that she has going on in her head, that she can do it. That was my goal, right? My outcome. Now, there are times when I don't have such a specific outcome. I mean, there are times where all I've got is, okay, this is what I don't want. This is the behavior that I don't want. Now, what would I want instead, right? And that's something that a lot of times you just got to take your best guess, quite frankly, right? If you don't know, then it's like, okay, well, at least put me in the right direction, right? And you hear that a lot. Just point me in the right direction, and I'll kind of figure things out. And sometimes that's the way you've got to start out with things, right? So decide the direction or the outcome, and then start taking some steps in that direction. The second thing is that you've got to notice what you're getting back, right? In this case, how was my student responding to the different things that I was giving to her, whether it was the things I was saying, whether it was my body language, the way that I was explaining the skill or the technique to her. How is she responding to that? Not only in taking it in, but also executing it as we're going through, right? Is it such that she was getting it? Is it such that I was just not explaining it properly, or in a way that she's really understanding it? In that case, then I go to the next step, which is, now, if it's not working, if you're noticing that it's not working, try a different approach, right? So try a different analogy. Instead of explaining it in a visual way, maybe use more of an auditory cue for that. Or actually, instead of, me demonstrating it for her and then asking her to follow, actually walking through the process with her so she gets it more into her body. So maybe she's more kind of a kinesthetic learner, right? So just got to try different approaches. And you kind of circle through those 3 steps. But then one of the things that I have to think about as well is something that I kind of added to this process, is that I have to reevaluate my initial goal or outcome or direction, right? Because again, when I first started with this, all I was doing was taking my best guess. I didn't have any real data to go on. Now that I'm getting feedback, though, now we've gone through this, iterated through this a few rounds. Now it's like, okay, let me reevaluate here. Is the direction that I had initially set out with this student, or with this, with my child, or with this client, is this something that actually makes sense now based on the feedback that I've been getting and the things that I have been trying? Sometimes it continues to make sense. So we'll keep on going in that direction. Other times, like, you know what? Got to do something a little bit different. In this particular case, it really did change, in that I had to change from teaching her the skill, because she was actually executing the skill quite well as we're going through. But every time there was a little mistake here or there, or like she just didn't, she wasn't moving properly. She would just say it. Oh God, I'm just uncoordinated. Right? So it wasn't so much that the skill had to be taught. I had to help her be a bit more forgiving to herself. I needed to help her find that grace within herself, right? For herself. And that's how this changed. And eventually my language started changing, of like, sometimes I would just stop, right? I would stop what we were doing if she said it. And I said, listen, you're doing it, right? You're really hard on yourself. I mean, have you heard what you're saying? Are you hearing this? You need to be a bit more forgiving of yourself. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself a break. Because beating up on yourself is not going to help. It's not helping. Right? Because there's more going on here than just you hitting the mitt. And I want you to understand that you are doing enough. That you are enough. Hope that was helpful, folks. This is Philip with the Everyday Fighter Podcast. Talk to you next time.